afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Unspoken Truth. I'm the founder of Mutual Respect and the host, Daniel, and today we're going to outline the discrepancies in the domestic violence and family violence statistics that have taken place over the past 10 to 15 years. So for nearly 2 decades, Australia's own data has shown the men make up 1/3 to nearly half of all victims of family violence. Yet the political messaging, government advertising and funding strategies continue to insist that domestic violence is men's violence against women. The gender propaganda. This expose reveals how statistical manipulation, changes in survey definitions, and strategic use of relative standard error have been used to silence male victims and uphold a gender-based political ideology, one that drives billions in gender-exclusive funding, fuels gender division, and leaves male victims unseen, unsupported, statistically erased, and politically and legally coerced into taking their own life at a staggering 47 men every single week in Australia, and not one single politician wants to expose the reality that this is nothing more than a gender divide strategy. This is the truth the system refuses to acknowledge. Across the ABS personal safety surveys from 2005, 2012 and 2016, the results were obvious. 1 in 3 intimate partner violence victims were male, 2 in 5 current partner victims were male, nearly half of emotionally abused partners were male. 1 in 3 victims of sexual assault, stalking and harassment were male. Men experience violence at a higher overall rate than women. 93 to 94% of perpetrators against men were female. These numbers were consistent, repeated, and statistically strong. This created a direct political problem. The narrative that domestic violence is gendered collapsed under the weight of evidence and proof. So, the narrative was protected, not by fixing the system, but by fixing the statistics. Shrinking the male sample size. Male respondent numbers were quietly reduced over time. Fewer men surveyed meant less reliable male statistics, which meant easier to dismiss. Adding a politically convenient disclaimer such as, the ABS introduced the following sentence: intimate partner violence statistics for men have a high relative standard error and are considered too unreliable to measure changes over time. So basically what they're saying is, because they chose to not speak to as many men in the survey, they couldn't back up the data and therefore they weren't going to record the data any further. So if that's not the epitome of statistical manipulation, then please someone let me know what the fuck is. Because this provided them the perfect political shield. Once something is statistically unreliable, it can be completely ignored. See, changing the definitions to reduce male visibility. The earlier surveys measured violence with nuance: current partner, previous partner, dating violence, cohabiting partner, emotional abuse types, coercive control, fear and anxiety indicators. The newer surveys collapsed or redefined categories, stripping out detail and disproportionately erasing male experiences. If you change the definition, you change the very outcome. Using unreliable data to justify excluding men from services. Government agencies now claim insufficient data to fund male services, not enough evidence to open male shelters, more research needed before recognising any male victims. But this lack of data was manufactured by the survey design itself. This is structural erasure, not statistical coincidence. And this would be a major contributing factor to the 47 men every week that are taking their own lives. Why is this happening? Just follow the money. Australia's domestic violence industry receives billions in gender-targeted funding. Women's services fully funded. Male victim services almost non-existent. Male shelters zero in many states. National campaigns 100% targeted at men as the perpetrator. If the public understands that men are 1/3 of victims, male victimization is rising, female perpetrators exist, and coercive control affects men heavily, then the gendered funding model collapses. Manipulating statistics protects political ideology, institutional power, NGO funding pipelines, and the manufactured gender divide, which is exactly what the government is forcing upon all of us, and yet we are falling for it hook, line, and sinker, Australia. The human cost. By erasing male victims statistically, we also erase them socially and politically. Men don't report violence, men fear not being believed, men are turned away from services, fathers lose their children due to false allegations, boys grow up witnessing violence with no support, male suicide skyrockets without any care in the world from any of these gutless global cowards representing themselves as our politicians. This is not just a statistical manipulation. This is a national crisis being hidden in plain sight, Australia. Domestic violence is not a gender issue, it is a human issue. Male victims matter just as much as female victims. Female perpetrators do exist despite the political narrative. Children suffer most when the system plays politics with pain. We stand for truth over ideology, support over division, unity over gender politics. Australia deserves a system that helps all victims, not one that selectively funds based on political convenience.